What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 10-7 MMA Show with myself, Huzaifa, and Justin Guitar Hero James, coming to you live from an airport. And we are keeping the show going. We had to keep it going today, despite the fact that Justin's come back from an international trip, because this UFC this past weekend was so unbelievably incredible. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say that maybe the entire card wasn't the most exciting. I kind of disagree. I actually really enjoyed it. Yeah, I even enjoyed the Ian Garry fight, to be honest, because I thought it was very fascinating how it all came together and the strategy that Ian Garry employed. And I kind of called it. I'm not going to lie. He was going for a submission victory and really leveraging his newfound skill set that he has acquired at Shoot a Box, which I thought was super cool. But anyways, we're going to start with the main event. But before we start with the main event, Justin, just real quick, I know you ran with the Bulls in Spain. Can you just tell us a little bit about that experience real quick? Tehran, welcome back. I see you're joining along with us now more frequently. Thank you for that support. Oh, I like that. Look at those shoes. There's GOAT on there. That's cool. Anyways, thank you, Tehran. Welcome back. Yeah, Justin, tell us about the running with the Bulls and why did you do it in such a crazy way where you almost got speared?
Well, I mean, if you know me, I like to live life on the edge, man. And as I get older, I'm going to start living it a little more on the edge, riding whales out in the ocean, running with the bulls in Spain. I had my son with me, once in a lifetime experience. We were in Cáceres and Korea, Spain. It was only about an hour away, and they were doing a bull run. So I was like, fuck it, let's go down there. And it was awesome, man. So essentially it's a huge festival. There's hundreds and hundreds of people, maybe even thousands of people. And I found someone that spoke English. They told us where to go. We went to this pit, and they close all they gate everything up, and anybody can go into the pit. But then there's like fencing all around that you can go in and out of the pit, in case in case you get rushed. So like immediately I'd run right into the middle of the pit, and the guy to my right, he's coming, he's coming, and we look over, and I have a video. I have my phone out. They open the gate, and this bull, man, I tell you what, like I didn't think I like when we talked about it, like I didn't think I was gonna be that afraid of it. I was like, oh, it's probably gonna be a little intimidating. But this bull was huge, man. We're talking a 1,200-pound bull, big horns, big muscled up body, and for whatever reason, maybe just the luck of the draw, he charged right at me right out of the gate. And I have an incredible video up. I posted on my Instagram. He came straight at me out of the gate. I jumped through the fence. We get within arm's length of each other. We're looking each other in the eye. It's a really, really cool video. Fast forward about 30 minutes. So I play with this bull for like 30 minutes or so, in and out, taunting it. And then finally they open up the gates so you can run through the streets. And the bull runs through the streets and he smashes people and shit. So like I'm coming around the corner, and my buddy Bobby Nash, who you met on our show last week, he was in front of me, and I saw him make like a quick jerky movement, and I look, and there's the bull right in front of me, charging me, man. I'm talking maybe two yards away, and man, I tell you what, I'm not gonna say that I touched the bull, but I sure felt like I did, man. It was really close. I got another great video of that, and here's the craziest thing. So being an American in Cáceres, we're probably the only group there. It's kind of a smaller town. Well, I mean, it's a good sized town. I shouldn't say small town, but it's easy to pick out the Americans, especially with the shirt I was wearing. It says "I love hot moms" on it. And so we go back to dinner, and this guy, his name's Roberto, and he's like the sheriff of the town. He's like the number one, the police guy, and he trains at Ronin Fight Team, and that's where we were training with. He's like, "Oh, I saw you with the Bulls. I saw you with the Bulls," and I'm assuming that he saw the video that I posted on Instagram, but no. So there was a news reporter there videoing the whole thing, and you can pick me out of the crowd because I have "I Love Hot Mom" shirt on. And from afar, you saw this bull, like I'm wearing a blue shirt. I'm just walking, and because he showed me the video, he's like, "I saw you on the news. I saw," because we were on the news, and you see this guy from afar. You can't see my face, but you can definitely tell it's me because of my shirt. And then you
Uh-huh.
see this bull run right at me, and it just misses me. And then the camera gets close to us as me, my son, one of my students, Elijah Aries, and Bobby Nash, and DVD. We're walking down the street, and you can see the backs of our heads. And we kind of turn around a couple times so you can see it's us. But it was an incredible experience, man. I'm gonna post some more videos this week.
That is so crazy. All right. Well, any hot moms listening, there you go. Justin's your guy. If that's so good. I do have the video. I was trying to see if I could share it as you were telling the story, but it's not letting me do it to a non-browser window. So you guys have to check out Justin's Instagram if you do want to see it. But that was a wild story, and we take that into the main event, which is also a wild story. So first of all, we're going to start with the main event. I mean, what else do we talk about? What is everybody talking about today is Alex Pereira coming down and cementing himself as this superstar that has seemed to defy odds, defy logic in what he's done has been absolutely unbelievable. And watching his fight as well, if you guys got a chance to see the entire fight, I'm only going to be able to show a clip here. We're going to watch the knockout again, but man, it's just like, if you train striking and you know what good solid striking looks like, watching him it's just art. It's just amazing. So we're going to quickly show the knockout sequence again. And is this really the knockout sequence? Not really, because the knockout really began at the end of round 1 with that beautiful left hook. But let's watch this. Let's check it out. Here we go. I want to show you one other thing again. So what they realized that Yuri does is when Pereira goes for a low kick, okay? And Glover called this out. When Pereira goes for a low kick, he kind of checks in a way, or prepares to check in a way that leaves his head vulnerable. And so they saw this right off the bat. And now watch it again, and you can kind of see Yuri leave himself open. So check this out. Now, Justin, my first question to you is, I mean, unbelievable, not trying to take anything away from Pereira or whatever. Late stoppage, or are you fine with the stoppage?
I'm fine with the stoppage, man. I know Yuri's going to be fine with the stoppage. You know, I would rather, as a fighter, as an athlete, I'm going to speak for all the fighters. I'd rather have it late than early. You know, and Herb Dean's one of the best. I mean, yeah, there was a couple extra punches in there, but nobody's going to complain about that. Yuri's not going to complain about that. You know, this is two of the best fighters in the world. We don't want to leave any rocks unturned right now. And you know, by giving that finishing, those couple finishing blows really cemented the deal. There's going to be no arguing. That was a good finish.
Now, one other thing. Now, watch. I think people. I hope people observe this entire thing. This was one of the most beautiful moments in mixed martial arts period. And I want to talk about the entire journey in a second, but watch Alex after this. Okay, I think we look at him almost as like a Terminator figure, as an emotionless, just sort of juggernaut that comes forward as an indestructible. That's the reputation, that's the aura that he's getting now. But look what he does right after this knockout. And you know, he didn't want, I don't think he wanted to engage in that ground and pound, but he had to in order to ensure the victory, right? Because Herb Dean wasn't stopping it. But watch this. Oh, he's affected by it. What does that tell you? Is that rare? Am I making too big of a deal out of this?
I wouldn't say it's rare. You know, I think it's fight to fight, to be honest. And you know, you look at someone like Yuri, who's nothing but respectful to not only his opponent, but the sport of mixed martial arts. Man, this guy, he's a samurai, dude. You know, that's how they built the whole fight. You know, it's you know, Alex. They had him all dressed up in war paint, and then against the samurai, dude, he respects Alex. He respects the sport, and in turn, and that's what happens when you respect the sport and you respect your opponent. Your opponent's going to respect you back. And there's a great picture of me and one of my opponents, Brandon Noble, man, and we never had any bad blood, but I hit him with a great left hook to an overhand right, blocked one of his kicks, dropped him, hit him about 25 times afterwards. And there's an incredible picture of us when he's on the ground trying to get up. I go over and I put my arm around him and I say, "Hey, man, are you okay?" You know, it's just when you have respect for your opponent, you don't want to see him get hurt. I mean, unfortunately, we're gonna get hurt. It's just the way the game is. But once the referee stops it, you know, if you have respect for your guy, it's good to make sure that you know he was okay.
Now, you as a father, there's another part that I want to show to you about the story. I mean, I don't know. There's just so many. I don't know if I'm going too deep here, but like, there's just so many things that made this to me one of the most iconic moments that I've ever experienced in my life. But look after the victory. Okay, let me see if this is included in the clip. They're showing the replay. But watch this. I want to show you something. Oh, we're going to talk about his toe in a second. Look at this. What's your take on this moment? Is this a tear jerking moment for you when you know, you have your, like, you see that, or what does this mean to you as a fellow fighter?
Yeah, man, it doesn't get any better than that. You know, I've had my son in the ring with me multiple times after some victories. Unfortunately, never in the UFC, but even on the regional show, when you go out there, and I mean, you got to think MMA fighters are some of the most vulnerable athletes in the world. I mean, we're going on TV in our underwear and we're trying to knock each other out. You know, so when you know train as hard as he has and progress as hard as he has, and you get that moment of victory, and you get your family members coming there and celebrate with you, there's not much like it, man. It's just, I mean, you're only going to get 30 seconds or maybe a couple minutes. You know, in his position, he's probably going to get a couple minutes, but those are memories that just they will live on. And he'll tell his grandkids about, and his kids will tell their grandkids about, and so on and so forth. And you know, just to go back to what I said, yeah, I've had my son in the winners bracket a bunch of times. There's just no feeling like it.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about how is this even possible? I've listened to pretty much everybody from Luke Thomas to Ariel Helwani to other fighters to Daniel Cormier to Joe Rogan to Dana White. Everybody's essentially gushing about Alex Pereira. I don't think, and pretty much what everybody has said, lifelong supporters of the UFC, of the sport of mixed martial arts, this is absolutely unprecedented and uncharted territory. To have somebody come in with a kickboxing background, enter the UFC at I think 33, 3 years ago, and has already achieved double champ status. Not only one, number two, has defended his belt at light heavyweight multiple times, and has the capability to go up and win the heavyweight title. He probably will at some point, whether it's against John Jones or somebody else. When it's all said and done, it's probably going to happen. And he just started learning grappling 3 years ago. What is this? Somebody, MMA Guru, which I disagree with this take completely, but MMA Guru has come in and said he's making it's almost like he's so good that he's making a mockery of the sport, which again, I don't agree with, but he's making a mockery of the sport because he's coming in with such little grappling experience, yet he's shot to superstardom almost instantaneously. Yeah, like what do you make of his rise to fame? Also, given the fact that he seemingly has a major deficit in his game, or maybe not.
And that's the thing, like that's why I just don't like MMA Guru. He's so just over the top with this shit. Like, oh, he's making a mockery of the sport. Listen, he has put, for one, he's gotten really good matchups. He's gotten all striking matchups for the most part. And for two, he's dedicated 3 years of his life to wrestling and grappling. Like if you take 3 years and you dedicate it to wrestling and grappling, and I don't mean he's wrestling at a local high school. He's grappling and wrestling with the best in the world, like every day. Like, Huzaifa, if you and I start wrestling and say, hey, for 3 years, we're going to wrestle every single day, guess what? You're going to be able to compete with almost everybody in wrestling. And that's just from me. I'm not even the best in the world. He gets the best coaches in the world to watch after him for 3 years. So
Right.
I really hate how Guru says like, oh, he's making a mockery of this, or he's not. He's putting in his time. He's putting in his due diligence. He's doing everything he needs to do to make sure he keeps winning in MMA. I mean, obviously his striking it goes without say, but the guy is in the gym working his wrestling, working his grappling again for 3 years. That and imagine how many hours he's put in, how many ass whoopings he's taken in the gym, because again, he's not training with high school guys. He's going with the best in the world. And MMA Guru should be ashamed, for saying a mockery of the sport. MMA has
Yeah.
incredible athletes. And Alex Pereira, you know what? I wasn't a big sell on him at first, because again, kickboxer, once he goes against a wrestler, is going to get exposed. But I tell you what, this guy is slowly, I shouldn't say slowly, he is very quickly becoming one of my favorite fighters to watch.
I think man, I don't even know what to say. I'm still sort of in awe like everybody else. And we haven't even touched on all the other compounding factors that makes this ridiculous. So what about the fact that he just fought he just headlined UFC 300 against Jamal Hill and starts Jamal Hill in round 1. He's finishing every fight. That just happened. And that happened with about 3 weeks notice, maybe 4 weeks notice. Took a short notice fight for arguably the biggest UFC event of all time, and does not seem to be affected by the pressure whatsoever. Starts as Jamal Hill after taking a groin shot and wins victoriously. I know Jamal Hill's, complaining about the stoppage, but whatever. Unbelievable. Then he goes on vacation, goes to Australia, has 2 broken toes, one that he broke during that fight. And while he's recovering from the broken toes, he gets a call to replace Conor McGregor on 2 weeks' notice or 3 weeks' notice. I don't even know how quick. No, it's 2 weeks' notice. Comes in and looks unbelievable as if nothing has happened. And he's still got 2 broken toes. And did you see this? After he finished him, his toe was dislocated and he popped it back in after the finishing sequence. But he didn't even seem affected by it. And his striking still looked crystal. Like, I just don't even know what to make of all this, because I mean, have you ever seen something like this where the odds are just so banana, like it's just so bonkers what's happening with the injuries and what he's able to do and how he makes it seem so effortless? Like, what's happening?
No, I mean we can't say anything like this has ever happened in the UFC. This guy is something really special, and the UFC really needs to hold on to that now. And the reason we're talking about it is because it's so special and it's so rare. I can't think of anybody else that's come in. If you remember when Kevin Holland came in, he was like 3 or 4-0 in 1 year, and everyone was raving and raving and raving. but then he went on a little bit of a downfall, you know, and he just wins his last fight. So there's no shade to be thrown. But Alex did the same thing. He keeps winning, keeps beating the best in the world. What does he have? One loss to
Yeah,
Hazel
to
Adesanya.
Izzy.
No, I mean, and he already beat him, you know, and he's already beat him before that, you know, put a trilogy fighting together. But this guy is something special. He's something I want to keep my eye on. And like I said, I reiterate, he's becoming one of my favorite fighters to watch.
Okay, last question on Alex Pereira. We can dive a little deeper into this question, but what do you think is next? I know we got some comments suggesting what people think they would like to see next in our community. But first, what do you want to see next for Alex?
What I want to see next is whatever Alex wants. He has earned the right to start calling his shots. He doesn't need to step up on short notice anymore. He deserves a title shot at any weight he wants. If he wants to fight John Jones after John Jones' Stipe fight, that's the fight to be made. If he wants to fight Tom Aspinall, that's the fight to be made. If he wants a rematch against Izzy, that's the fight to be made. Sean Strickland, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If he calls Dana White and is like, I want to fight Justin James, guess what? I got to go show up and fight this guy. This guy is going to get whatever he wants, and he deserves it.
Okay, so Torrin says Alex to the right. Everybody forgets Ankalaev's name. So Demetrius Johnson on his podcast yesterday was like, that Russian guy could be big competition. I don't know why people forget Ankalaev's name so much. But anyways,
I can't remember. I honestly can't remember it either. I'm dead serious. I can't. Like, if you ask me, you could be, hey, I'll give you $1,000 to know this guy's name. I'll be like, damn, dude. Habib? Is it Habib Nurmagomedov? Shit.
Yeah, but dude, I think I don't know. I was thinking Ankalaev was going to be the one that would take Alex down. I don't even know anymore. I think Alex wins. There's something just weird about him that seems to defy logic. And I don't know. I think he's got to win, especially if he gets a full camp and heals his toes. I mean, it's just bananas. Another suggestion from Toron is Yuri versus Hill next. I've heard a lot of people say that. I think that'd be a great matchup. Yuri versus Jamal Hill, coming up maybe before the year ends at some point. Smasher has said, let's not forget Alex is barely entering his prime. That's the other weird part, right? Like, he's 36. He turns 37, I believe, in a week. His birthday's in July. So it's a few days away or a week away. But he turns 37. But for that weight class, that's still really, really young. Remember, his mentor, Glover Teixeira, was a champion at 40 and 41. So, you know, barely entering his prime might be a bit of an exaggeration, but I think he's squarely in his prime. I think we could probably agree with that, especially considering the ramp up in the grappling skills. So even if you look at the age as a whatever, you know, maybe his skills are the speed declining, but that steep ramp up on the grappling end, I would say, yes, he probably is entering his prime or deep into his prime right now. So there's just a lot of interesting things. As we mentioned his next matchup, and you said you want to see him fight whoever, and I am with you on that front. Just want to ask quickly, because people are talking about it and it's a fun conversation piece. Who do you think wins, Alex or John Jones?
You know, right now, John Jones weighs 260 pounds. Alex on fight day weighed 230. Unfortunately, I just don't think. I think he'd have to really get involved with a nutritionist and put on a little bit of mass to hang with John right now. Unfortunately, I think he's just a little bit too big for Alex. But guess what? As a super fight, John Jones is scheduled to fight Stipe. If he rolls through Stipe, John Jones said today, or he said earlier this week, I don't know. I got my days mixed up being in Spain, but he said that people are asking him, is he going to fight after Stipe? And he says it depends how he feels in the Stipe fight. And I respect that. So let's say he goes in there and just mauls Stipe, finishes him in the first round. He feels great. Well, guess what? Now we give Alex, a 12-week camp. You know, have this fight, because what are they fighting in September?
I'm not sure.
Well, I think at the end of the year. Maybe a New Year fight. Maybe in January. You know, he goes and fights Stipe in, say, September, October, and then he fights, Alex in like January. I think that would just be incredible. I think if they fought right now, John Jones would win, just because size alone, and he knows how to use his weight. He would put Alex against the fence and try to gas him out there, and I think that would be the appropriate game plan to win. But with that being said, if he gets a full camp and he gets a nutritionist, can put on some extra weight, I mean, the sky's the limit for this guy. I'm excited to see where he goes. I would love to see him fight John Jones when he's ready.
That would be incredible.
You
but
know
like
what?
you said,
what would be crazy is, sorry to cut you off, but
no, go ahead.
if Stipe gets hurt, Alex, I bet, will step up.
Now, would you want to? Well, okay, let's not even get into the Tom Aspinall because it gets too murky. But I guess what we can say is this, and I think you'll agree with me here. Whether he fights Ankalaev next, whether he fights John Jones after that, I think what's happening with Alex now, which is pretty amazing, it's kind of to me, it's similar to what happened with Khamzat, where anybody he fights, I have to see it, and I cannot wait to see it because it's going to be spectacular. Even when Khamzat goes to a decision, it's spectacular. Alex has never even gone to a decision. It's not going to happen. It's impossible because he's gonna knock somebody out, or I guess maybe get knocked out, right? Like we saw with Izzy, although he had to cut a lot of weight for that, and he probably just didn't have enough fluid in his brain. I think he's a lot more durable at these heavier weights, is what people are saying. But anyways, he is must-see TV at this point, and maybe rivaling Conor McGregor for the first time. I think he might be the one, especially if he gets one more victory, one more successful title defense. I don't know. And the crazy thing is he's doing it without speaking any English. And like for somebody like me, where I derive so much excitement and gratitude for the sport just by being able to connect with the fighters and hearing their stories, I can't even do that with Alex, and that's usually a big barrier for me to connect with the fighters, because I love to hear their stories in them speaking it, right? Hear their emotions, hear all those things, and yet we still feel so connected to them. So it's absolutely wild, absolutely amazing. What a journey, what a sport, best sport on the planet, as we always say. All right, moving on to one of your boys, one of your teammates. What the heck did you? So okay, I was out on Saturday night. By the time I got home, the fights had already happened, but I hadn't been following because I was at a party. So when I started rewinding it, and I remember it first showed, and it showed Dan Igue's face, right? Showing up. I'm like, wait, what? Oh, they must be doing like a replay of an old fight or something. Maybe I fast forwarded too much or whatever, because I was watching it, not at live time. And then I was like, wait a minute, what? Brian Ortega's out? And he went out apparently because he had a fever. What? Do you have any inside info? Obviously, it's your coach, but like, do you know, or did you hear that this was happening in those 4 hours that Dan Ige was coming in on super short notice?
No, man. I mean, even if I was in Vegas, I was in Spain. So, but even if I was in Vegas, I mean, it happened the day of, and that's not something that was really talked about. Let me tell you a little bit about Danimal Ige. Danimal is his name because he's a freaking animal. This guy is, when people are like, oh, it's short notice. For one, Dan's been getting ready for a fight. All right, he has a fight like 2 or 3 weeks anyways. I think that I'm sure that fight's off now, but he has been training. Another thing, even if he didn't have a fight, Dan is in the gym all the time. This guy is working on his craft day in and day out. His head coach, Eric Nixick, is very, very diligent with Dan. They're always doing strength and conditioning. They're always hitting it. They're always game planning. So when I saw Dan stepped up, I mean, as cool as it is, and I think it's great, but I'm not surprised. This guy is a savage guy. He's a savage in the gym. And I tell you what, he's one hell of a person, too. I've had some really long, deep conversations with him about my career and about my life, and he's given me some great insight, some great tips. This guy is not only a great fighter, but he's a great human being, and I couldn't be happier for Dan. I know he went in there, he didn't get the win, but he put on an incredible performance that is going to be remembered for a very long time, and Dan's going to get what he deserves next, and whatever he wants to get next, he will get. His next opponent, he'll be able to hand choose his opponent because of what he did this past weekend.
Yeah, and he's only 32. He asked to fight at the Sphere. I don't think he named an opponent, but Dana White even said after the fight, yeah, whatever those two want. Diego Lopes and Dan Ige asked to fight at the Sphere. I think they're going to fight at the Sphere. I
heard it's a rematch.
Is that what you would? Okay, I also heard. Okay, you probably know more than I do, but I also heard that they were thinking about having Diego Lopes actually fight Brian Ortega next. But maybe that was just a pun in giving their opinion. But you're saying Dan Ige versus Diego Lopes is going to be a rematch of those two?
It's definitely a possibility. It's definitely not out of the cards. It's something that Dan said he would like to do at the Sphere.
So the thing is, when you look back at this fight, Diego Lopes really tired out in the third round, and Dan Ige almost finished him. Some of the announcers and the commentators were saying, and again, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, that he shouldn't have jumped back on top of Diego Lopes. I mean, it sounds even stupid to say that he shouldn't have done this or he should have done that, right? Like, we're just commenting after the fact, and you're in fight mode, and he probably did exactly what his instincts told him to do. But what they were saying is because Diego Lopes was so tired, perhaps it would have been better, especially because he was having such success on his feet with the striking in round 3, which blew my mind, by the way, that he was in such good condition. But you did say he was training, that he should have stepped back, let Diego Lopes come up so he could have finished him. Did you have any thoughts on that, or do you feel like he did exactly what he was supposed to do?
Man, hindsight's 2020, dude. We can look back and say what we should have done and what we shouldn't have done. But I guess what? If he jumps on Lopes and finishes him, he's the smartest fighter in the world. If he lets him
Right.
up and finishes him, he's, you know, it's everyone is always result oriented. Like whatever happens, oh well, that's the right thing to happen. If he would have finished him on the ground, he's a genius. If he would have finished him on the feet, he's a genius. Now since he didn't finish him on the ground, you know, everyone's going to throw what he should have done. Man,
Right.
Danny, listen, the fans need to sit back, sit on the couch, drink a couple beers, and let the professional fighters do what they do. Because while you're at home drinking beer, we're the pros on TV, you know, putting our life on the line for your entertainment. Let us do what we think is right in that situation. Because again, hindsight's always 20/20. And again, maybe Dan was getting tired too, and you know he thought he could get him on the get him on the ground and take a
True.
little break and finish him. You know, there's just so many variables that go into fighting that you know these armchair quarterbacks. You know, it's tough to say, and even some fighters, you know, like I was criticized, you know, like I said when I took down Charles Rosa, and looking back, obviously it was the wrong decision, but again, in the moment, you know, you react and you do what you think is right in the moment.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's always right. It's just a reaction, man. And again, if he would have finished him, Dan would have been the smartest guy in the world. So hats off to whatever Dan Ige decides to do, whether it's take him down, stand and bang, whatever it is. I support him.
It's a strange thing with this card, how many mishaps there were and how many people had to kind of step up to still make this an incredible event. And I think they hit it. I think it was an incredible event. Whatever you want to say about some of the other fights, this and that, but like I thought it was an incredible, especially the co-main and the main, unbelievable. And it's just crazy. The 4 hours notice, I can't even believe such a thing. He said he was out there getting a massage and he came in, he basically almost won and almost beat one of the scariest up and coming prospects in the featherweight division, fighting at a higher weight. I mean, the whole thing is crazy. He had zero game plan, just went in there. And I loved hearing Eric Nixick at the end in between the second and the third round being like, listen, man, we're playing with house money right now. It doesn't matter what happens. You've already won by showing up. So now go out there and just throw it all on the line, put it all on the line, see if you can get the finish. And he did, and he almost got it. I would have lost my mind had he gotten the finish. Yeah, the whole thing was unbelievable. Do you have somebody in mind that you'd like to see Dan Ige fight at the Sphere? If it's not Dan Ige versus Diego Lopes, and by the way, we have a comment here from Toron, and I kind of agree with that. He says, I don't want to see Dan Ige versus Lopez. It should be Ortega versus Lopez. Rebook for the Sphere at lightweight. Sure, they could do it at lightweight. They could do it at whatever the weight class. I mean, whatever they agree to, fine. But if they do that rematch, and I have heard some rumblings of that, who would you want to see? Do you have a thought in mind for a good opponent for Dan Ige?
Man, I don't know, or I haven't really thought about it. Who is he scheduled to fight in 2 or 3 weeks?
Okay, let me look. I'm gonna check right now.
I mean,
Dan
maybe
Ige.
rebooking that fight, you know, because again, Dan was getting ready for that fight to begin with. Just put it at a later date.
Okay, it doesn't show who was he. Okay, I'm gonna check this out. An illness. Okay, Diego Lopez co-main event. Dan Ige was called as a replacement.
You just
I
go to
can't see.
Tapology. It'll probably say on Tapology.
Okay, let me find it here. Tapology. Dan Ige. Okay, let's see. Oh, here it is. Joe Anderson Brito. Do you know who that is?
I don't even know who that is. So think about it. He's stepping up to a guy that I've never even heard of to go fight Diego Lopez, man. I tell you what, I want Dan Ige to hand choose his next opponent. Whoever he thinks the best matchup for him, he deserves it.
Fair enough. We got an interesting question here that I do want to throw up. It might be from somebody new to our show. What's up, Cold Art Maker? Welcome to the show. Who's the best kicker in the UFC? Oh, that's a tricky question because I don't know if you mean low kicks, calf kicks, high kicks, like what. But yeah, what do you think, Justin?
Edson Barboza, no questions asked. Edson Barboza, man.
How about if you compare him to Alex Pereira, especially with the weird way that he flicks that low calf kick that seemingly nobody can check it. That amazing. I mean, do you put them at all in the same category? What do you think?
I think they're just two totally different strikers, you know, and the reason people are going to think Alex is the best striker in the world because obviously he just won by head kick knockout. But if you look at a resume of Edson Barboza, and I know he's lost some fights, you know, he fought Dan Ige. Dan Ige beat him. But from a kicking standpoint, this guy has, from my understanding, the nastiest leg kicks in the game. He has a spinning back heel kick that he's knocked a bunch of guys out with in the UFC. He has a spinning back kick from hell. I mean, he can head kick from every angle. I think that Edson Barboza is the best kicker in the UFC. And if anybody disagrees, man, they just haven't really watched any of his highlight film.
All right, fair enough. Okay, guys, moving on to topic number 3. Another one of Justin's teammates that also fought on this card, but this teammate pulled off, in my opinion,
Where's that pop?
a victory where he was. I think most people were picking Anthony Smith for a number of reasons. Not saying that was the right call, but I think people were saying, all right, look, Roman Dolidze was moving up a weight class. Anthony Smith has a ton of experience. He's kind of been hot lately. He's been doing great. And Roman Dolidze, again, was on super short notice. But he pulled it off, and he pulled it off in quite a remarkable fashion. Did the fight unfold the way that you had envisioned, the way that you had predicted?
Roman is a really good guy, man, and I like him a lot. He's a great teammate. Here's the thing with stepping up on short notice. Short notice takes are very dangerous because Roman can put it all out there. And again, just like Eric said, man, I love that analogy. He said, we're playing with house money right now. I mean, when you show up on a short notice fight, you really have nothing to lose because even if you lose and get knocked out in 10 seconds, you're going to get another match. You're doing the UFC a favor by showing up. That puts a lot of stress and pressure on Anthony Smith. This guy might not be ready. Oh, fuck, no game plan. So for Roman to go in there and do what he did, man, again, he got an opportunity and he took full advantage of the opportunity at hand, and he pulls off a win against a hot Anthony Smith, man. I thought Anthony Smith, Anthony Smith is tough, dude. There's no question. I know you and I both wanted him to win prior to the opponent switch, but Roman, again, took full advantage of his situation and he came through.
Yeah, he definitely did. You also notice in the fight that Anthony Smith seemed to be really gassed, which was interesting because Roman Dolidze came up and Anthony Smith was short notice, but Roman Dolidze was even shorter notice. I don't know why that was or how that happened. But after the fight, Anthony Smith went over to Hunter Campbell through the cage and said, next fight, can I have more time, please? Can I have like a full training camp? So even though he's the warrior, he's willing to step up. I think he was like, all right, this was too difficult to perform in 2 back-to-back short notice fights. Now, I'm sure they're going to oblige him, and I'm sure he's still got to be in their good graces as a result, even after this loss. But for Roman Dolidze, for your boy, what do you think is next for him? What would you like to see next for him?
I want to see Roman go back to his own weight class. I don't want to see him go up, and that could have been a factor in his gas tank. When you're not cutting a lot of weight, a lot of times you'll have a perfect fight camp and a hard weight cut, and you'll gas out. I've gassed out in a lot of fights from my weight cut. I'll be in great shape. I'll look great, but then sometimes, I won't be as on top of my diet, and I'll have a hard weight cut and I'll gas out. And that could have contributed why he had a better gas tank than Anthony Smith on even shorter notice. What I want Roman to get a full camp. I want him to go back to his weight class and fight a top 10 guy and really establish himself at that weight.
Okay, so let's check out the rankings right here. So in the middleweight division, we see Roman is already at 10. Now, I'm curious to see how this affects his ranking in the middleweight division, because obviously this was a victory at light heavyweight, but I imagine it should move him up. Let's see. So any of these fighters, do you have a preference for any of these guys above him? Obviously, he should take on somebody in the top 10, as you mentioned.
Paul Acosta coming off a loss, that'd be a good matchup because it could really put Paul Acosta's career at that spot. Paul is going to be a lot bigger than him, and he's obviously ranked above him right now. I think that'd be a great matchup, especially coming off a loss, because if Costa can't beat Roman, then he needs to start looking for another job.
Whew. All right, that'd be an amazing fight. Love seeing Paulo Costa fight. All right. Let's move on to the next topic. What's next for Ian Garry? Before we talk about Ian Garry specifically, let's talk about the entire fight. I want to throw up a comment here first, and I want to talk about this comment. So Torrin said, I told you guys Garry and MVP would be boring. Remember, okay? And I do remember you saying that. I'm not going to say that I thought the fight was boring. I actually thought it was interesting. Yeah, was there a knockout? No. Was there like crazy striking maybe that we were hoping to expect with MVP? No. But I thought it was really interesting because look at the path to victory that Ian Garry pursued. He went for grappling, and I thought he did. I don't know. I'd love to know your thoughts, Justin. I thought he did quite well. I mean, he didn't look like the most seasoned grappler out there. He went for a heel hook, kind of lost that. But to me, what was alarming where and by the way, I'm no expert in grappling, but I'm basing this on what the commentators were saying, that he was making beginner mistakes in terms of trying to get out of some of those holds, trying to get out of the body lock. He was turning the wrong way. He was making a lot of mistakes that I was just shocked to hear, being that you're in the UFC, you've been fighting for so long in Bellator. He's 36 or 30, about to be 37, and yet seems to have these massive gaps in his game. And you contrast it with somebody like Alex, who seems to not have those gaps. I mean, to me, that tells me just MVP is going to have problems unless he fights Wonder Boy, pretty much, and that's it. He's going to have major problems in the UFC. What's your takeaway? Do you feel similarly?
Well, first thing, let's talk about MVP. MVP. So what the UFC I think is going to do with MVP? I don't think he's not champion quality. He has, again, too many holes in his game, especially those beginner mistake holes. You can't become a champion with those kind of holes. And obviously, he's not working on it because he's fought in Bellator for a long time. He had a great success. Yes. But what I think the UFC is going to do is they're going to put him in exciting fights and give him exciting matchups. And I really think that, Sean Shelby, Mick Maynard thought that this was going to be a striking delight, as I did as well. But now let's turn it over to Ian Garry. Let's talk about the progression he's made, because up until this point, we haven't really seen the wrestling and grappling of Ian Garry. And yes, was MVP a lesser grappler and wrestler of him? Yes, he absolutely was. But it still goes to show that Ian's working on his wrestling. He's working on his grappling. And a lot of people are saying this is a boring fight. I'm seeing it. But again, we're talking about the growth of this up-and-coming superstar. This guy could be the next Conor McGregor. If he can get on the mic and talk as well as Conor, actually nobody is ever going to talk as well as Conor. But if he could even do a fraction of as well, and he has great striking, and he's going to put his wrestling together, Ian Garry really can be a problem in the division.
I think so, and I was a fan at the beginning. I know there was some back and forth, and maybe people got turned off by him. But I'm becoming. Well, no, I never really left. I've always been a fan of Ian Garry because he's awesome to watch, an amazing fighter, and there was some just drama, whatever nonsense, and maybe people thought he was a little too overly arrogant. But I mean, look, he's putting in the work, and he just was so confident that he was going to just wipe the floor with MVP. Now, did he wipe the floor with him? Maybe it was a little closer than Ian Garry was talking about, but I mean, he still came out victorious. He's ready to move on, and he's calling out everybody. He wants to fight Shavkat. But who's calling out Shavkat? I think only Jack Magdalena. That's the only other guy that I've ever heard call out Shavkat. Ian Garry wants to fight Shavkat. He doesn't want to run away from that. He wants to fight all the big dogs. Kamaru Usman. Obviously, he was trying to fight Colby, but Colby didn't want to fight him, or Colby had an injury, whatever it is. But I'm a big fan. And like you said, he's putting in the work. He knows his deficiencies, and he's not running away from them. He's going and facing them head on, and he just pulled it out and used them, I think, pretty effectively to get the victory in this last in this last bout. So now we're going to see what's next for Ian Garry, and he's going to probably move up in the rankings. Let me see where he's at right now in the welterweight division. He's at 7, so I imagine he's going to go up a little bit higher, maybe not crazy higher because he fought somebody lower ranked. But let's take a look at this rankings. What do you think would be a good or interesting fight for the fans next? Here we go. Ian Machado Garry.
Don't even need to look at it. Colby Covington. That's the only fight I want to see. I want to see him stick his foot right in Colby's mouth, man. I'm dead serious. It's the only fight I care about for Ian Garry right now. I'm dead. I want him to beat him so bad.
Colby was on Submission Radio yesterday, and doesn't seem like he's really. He talked about Ian Garry. He did his normal shtick where he said the fight was an embarrassment. He did, whatever. So I don't know if he's going to fight him, but he's recovering. It would make sense if this is true that Colby is actually dealing with an injured foot or a broken foot and he couldn't fight. Maybe that could be the next fight. And Colby is still ranked number 4. So I think that's a great step up. And I think it'd be interesting too, because he is engaging in the grappling. Let's see if he can do enough to keep Colby off and keep the fight standing. I think that'd be a great fight. Let's go. What about, and so for MVP, we come back to this idea, hey, we're going to have some fun fights. Is Wonder Boy the fight to make? MVP versus
only fight to make. I think that's the only fight to make, man. I really don't think. Yeah, MVP is incredible, and I'm not taking anything off. He's a great fighter. He has some great highlights. But again, he's too old and he has too many holes in his game. I mean, when he was in Bellator, these are the holes that he should have been fixing. If he's being taken down by Ian Garry, and Ian Garry is not known for his wrestling, he's not known for his grappling, especially with the commentators are calling out all the beginner mistakes. Keep this guy around, put him in exciting fights. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson's the fight to make for MVP.
All right. And Torrin did mention, and this is what I was saying, Colby talked crap about Oliveira and Chandler. That's what he did on Submission Radio. Why is he talking about like it's just, I don't know. It's just almost becoming a running joke. And the video barely got any views. I think people are becoming more and more turned off by Colby, sadly. But we can bring it back. Let's make let's make a Colby fight great again with pairing him up against Ian Garry, where he can talk all the smack. Ian Garry can talk smack back. Oh, it's too good. It has to happen. Please, MMA gods, please, UFC, make this fight happen. Okay, moving along. And by the way, thank you everybody for joining today. If you haven't liked the video, please click that like button. If you want to subscribe and join along on our journey as we're having an absolute blast, please do that. Okay, we're moving on to the last topic. This is one that I'm really excited to talk to you about because we haven't really talked about Payton Talbott, you and I. I'm sure you, well, I don't know. That's the cool part. You may know him or you may know people that train with him. But before we get to talk about him, we're going to replay his fight. Actually, they don't have the entire fight up. Darn it. They just have the finishing sequence. But the fight lasted like 15 seconds. So let me show you this. I was just so impressed. Look at his speed, his striking. Check this out. I mean, what's your takeaway from that beautiful finishing sequence? That amazing, and as Payton Talbott called it in his own interview on the MMA Hour, just a 1-2 that landed flush, right? And I think his opponent was about to throw a kick. That's what opened up the chin so beautifully. Just a nice 1-2 and caught that 1-2 perfectly on the bottom of the chin, knocked him out. Wasn't a lot to look at, but somebody from the Contender Series, what do you see in that short clip?
I see confidence, man. And again, he's focusing on his basics, just coming in with that jab cross. I mean, that's your top first day of boxing, jab cross. And man, he is quick. He's powerful, and he has devastating power. Now, I don't know too much about this. I've seen some videos leading up to this fight. I was interested. I was semi-interested, to see if the hype train. But for him to come in and do what he did in the time he did it, bang, bang, 1-2, sleep central. I'm looking forward to seeing what's up with this kid, man. I want to see a couple more fights out of him. This isn't something like, oh, let's throw him to a top 10 guy right away, obviously. But I do want to see him. I do want to see a little more of this guy and get him in a fight where he's going 1-2 rounds, and then we can really see what this kid's made of.
Super cool guy. Also into skateboarding. Apparently, he was talking about hanging out with Tony Hawk and all this stuff. And yeah, just that striking looks so crisp. It was amazing. Oh, we have an interesting comment from the MMA holes. Bro, be careful. UFC is nasty with the copyright stuff. All right. Well, the good news is right now we're not monetized yet, so it's all good. We're cool. We can play the clips a little bit longer. If they hit us with some, I think it'll be okay. Nothing to demonetize at this point. But I had to show you that knockout. We had to show you the Pereira victory. And MMA holes, if you are new to the show, welcome. Thank you for joining along. Toran, going back to the Ian Garry versus Colby fight, he says, I think Colby's trash talk would make Ian Garry cry. I don't think so. I actually disagree. I think Ian Garry is going to mess Colby up because here's the thing about Colby. I think this is part of the reason why he also doesn't want the fight. He's all scripted, right? Like he writes out preset lines and he's doing some thinking on his feet, but you see that he kind of has trouble keeping his, he trips on his words a lot. This is not, I'm not trying to talk smack. It's just the reality of the situation. I see it all. I've seen so many of his interviews. I've seen all his pressers. He trips over his words. It's not natural for him. He's done great work on practicing and rehearsing and doing his thing and becoming a great presence in the sport from the trash talking side, but it's not his forte. Ian Garry, on the other hand, is pure off the cup. Okay. He is actually naturally geared towards the trash talk. I think he's going to be able to maneuver and slip and really give it to Colby. So I think Colby's going to be outmatched both physically and verbally. And I think it's going to be really phenomenal. So we have to see that. Okay, just a couple more comments, and we are going to call it a day. So Justin can get on his flight. Excuse me. Payton should fight Adrian Yanez next. That's an interesting take. All right, we're gonna check that out. And then, yeah, last but not least, we just want to come back to this. I don't know what Colby's trying to do. I guess he's trying to set himself up for a position where he can guarantee a win. I think, as sad as it is for me to say this, I think unless the UFC super incentivizes him for this last fight to fight Ian Garry, I just don't think he's going to do it because I think it could be his last fight. I think he's going to lose, and it's going to really mess up his career to the point where people aren't going to want to see him fight, and he may want to step away at that time to WWE or something like that. But I guess we'll see. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for joining. Justin, thank you so much for joining from the airport. I know you're in transit after a long trip of nearly getting killed by a bull, so we really appreciate it. This was a blast. We had to talk about UFC 303. What an amazing entire event, but what a main event. Alex Pereira, you're on your way. Not on your way. You're there. You're at the mountaintop. You're at the mountaintop. Congratulations. It's a pleasure to watch your fights, and we will see you guys in the next video on Friday. Take it easy.